The general had no idea his new recruit would become his savior. Our story begins in the 1930s, during a time of great change and turmoil in China. The nation was in desperate need of an army to protect it from foreign invaders. One man, General Zhang, had answered the call. He dedicated his life to training and drilling a group of young men who would soon become known as the National Revolutionary Army. But while the general and his soldiers were busy fending off attacks, another threat was looming closer to home. The general's daughter was being targeted by Japanese spies, but how could he know that? He had no idea. What he did know was that his men needed supplies, and so he left the safety of his camp to venture into the nearby village. As he made his way through the bustling marketplace, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Little did he know that a pair of sharp eyes were indeed following him, taking in every move he made. It wasn't just any ordinary person who was observing the general. It was one of the most highly trained spies Japan had ever sent to China. His name was Tanaka, and his mission was to capture the general's daughter. But why, you might ask? What was so special about this girl? Well, you see, she held a very important secret in her possession, a secret that could change the course of the war. Secretly, she had a twin sister who was being held hostage by the Japanese. In order to ensure the general wouldn't try anything risky, like sending out a rescue mission, Tanaka had been ordered to keep a close eye on her. But he never anticipated the twist of events that would take place. That day, the general would soon find himself in grave danger, and it would be up to Tanaka to decide whether to save him or follow his orders. Tanaka's thoughts raced as he watched the general walk away. His orders were clear: capture the general's daughter at all costs. But something about this mission didn't sit right with him. The general had no idea he was in danger. If Tanaka decided to follow his orders, he would put the general's life in jeopardy. But if he went against his orders, he would be putting his own neck on the line. As the general continued on his way, Tanaka knew he had to make a decision quickly. He started following the general, keeping a safe distance. He had to be careful not to draw any attention to himself. All the while, his mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, the general was completely oblivious to the danger that was lurking around him. He was focused on the task at hand, getting supplies for his men. He had no idea that his daughter's life was hanging in the balance. As the minutes ticked by, Tanaka's anxiety grew. He had to decide what to do. Suddenly, he heard commotion in the distance. A group of Japanese soldiers were approaching. His heart sank. They were getting close. He had to act fast. In a split-second decision, he decided to approach the general and warn him about the danger that lay ahead. But how could he do this without revealing his true identity? He needed a way to get close to the general without raising suspicion. He began to formulate a plan. Tanaka decided to use the chaos caused by the Japanese soldiers to get close to the general. He slipped into the crowd, blending in with the townspeople. As the Japanese soldiers got closer, the general became aware of the danger and started to look around for cover. Tanaka knew this was his chance. With the skills of a seasoned spy, he managed to get close to the general without being noticed. Just when the Japanese soldiers were about to reach them, he whispered urgently into the general's ear, "There are Japanese soldiers heading your way. You need to hide." The general, taken aback by the urgency in the man's voice, followed his advice and disappeared into a nearby hut. Tanaka, having done his part, slipped away unnoticed. As the Japanese soldiers approached, they searched frantically for the general, but he was nowhere to be found. They had arrived too late. Tanaka watched from a distance, relieved that he had saved the general's life, but he knew his troubles were far from over. He had gone against his orders, and now he would have to find a way to cover his tracks. He had to make sure the Japanese high command would never know what he had done. As the days went by, Tanaka's guilt over his actions began to consume him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had betrayed his country, but he knew he had done the right thing. Saving the general's life had prevented a bigger conflict. One day, while on a mission, he was captured by the nationalist forces. When they discovered his identity, they brought him before the general. The general, surprised to see the spy who had saved his life, was torn between his duty to his country and his respect for the spy's bravery. Tanaka confessed everything, hoping for the general's understanding. He explained how he had been sent to capture the general's daughter, and how he had changed his mind at the last moment. He had saved the general's life, but at what cost? The general, impressed by the spy's honesty and courage, decided to offer him a chance at redemption. He proposed a deal. If Tanaka agreed to help the National Revolutionary Army, he would keep his secret. Tanaka, grateful for the opportunity, accepted the deal. He used his knowledge of Japanese tactics and strategies to help the nationalist forces. Together, they devised plans that caught the Japanese off guard. As the war progressed, Tanaka became a valuable asset to the National Revolutionary Army. His skills as a spy and strategist helped turn the tide of the war. He proved to be a man of honor, keeping his word and never revealing the general's secret. News of Tanaka's bravery and loyalty spread throughout the ranks of the nationalist army. He was no longer seen as a Japanese spy, but as a hero who had chosen to fight for what was right. Years later, after the war had ended, Tanaka found himself at a crossroads. He could choose to return to Japan or stay in China, where he had found a new home. He decided to stay in China. He had fallen in love with the country and its people. He had found a purpose and a sense of belonging with the National Revolutionary Army. Tanaka's decision to stay in China was met with mixed reactions. Some members of the nationalist army were suspicious of him, while others admired his courage and loyalty, but the general stood by him, vouching for his trustworthiness. Tanaka's loyalty to the general and his new country was never questioned again. He continued to serve the National Revolutionary Army, helping to rebuild China after the war. In the end, Tanaka's story became a legend, passed down through the ranks of the nationalist army. He was remembered as the Japanese spy who chose to defect and become a hero. His bravery and loyalty were an inspiration to all who heard his story. And so the tale of Tanaka, the Japanese spy who became a hero, continued to be told for generations to come. It was a story of courage, loyalty, and the power of redemption. So what can we learn from this story? Well, first, it shows us that it's never too late to change. No matter what mistakes we've made in the past, we always have the opportunity to do something good. Second, it reminds us that bravery isn't always obvious. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to go against the status quo and do what we think is right. Finally, it teaches us that loyalty is a powerful force. It can inspire us to do great things and help us to overcome even the toughest challenges. What did you think of the story? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future uploads. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.